They say her chicken makes grown men cry. Hot, juicy, peppered so well, the taste clings to your tongue long after the last shred is gone, sparking little aftershocks of heat that light up your brain. One bite and hunger detonates. You crave 10. People slog over 2 dusty ridges, barter sleep for a place in line, wave coins, cowries, or wedding vows just to claim one more piece. How can one woman's chicken taste that good? Is it pure skill, or is something darker bubbling beneath the crackling skin? This is the tale of Madame Ember. Adaeze Nwankwo was once Lagos's wheelbarrow barbecue princess, a flame-juggling phenom who flipped wings until bankers sweated, fashion editors licked fingers, and food bloggers camped by her cart for sunrise shots. Jealousy, though, is a hungry shadow. At a governor's gala, a rival slipped rancid gizzards into her cooler. A senator vomited on live TV, tabloids shrieked, "Killer cook," and sponsors stampeded. Within 72 bruising hours, her permits vaporized. Debts swelled, and her billboard smile was smeared into a meme. She sold her last copper pan for a bus seat east and hitchhiked until asphalt softened into red clay. 3 nights later, she limped into Umónachi, a river hamlet so hushed even gossip walked on tiptoe. Landlords doubled rents at the sight of her frayed city jacket. Market women muttered about poison hands. Hunger chewed her gut. At dusk, she followed the river's shimmer, hoping to rinse dust from her face, and spotted a tilted smoke shack. Tin, roof caving, clay hearth intact, pepper ghosts still haunting the cold ash. Too tired to plot revenge, she crawled inside, clutching a charred spatula, curled into the hearth's dusty belly, and let the river's lullaby cushion her shame. Outside, the current paused, tasting her grief. The moon's reflection wavered, like something trapped beneath a sheet of glass, and old nursery warnings, "The water mother hears broken hearts," began to stir. Midnight split the valley like lightning. Frogs throttled their croaks, palms froze mid-sway, and the river slicked itself into black crystal. From that mirror rose a spiraling column that unfurled into a towering woman crowned with reeds, scales glistening purple-blue, eyes ember-orange. Adaeze lurched upright. The stranger's voice rumbled yet whispered, "Child of Ember, I am Mmírí-Anya, mother of this river. Your flame was stolen. Let me feed it." She offered dawn-fresh chickens by the sack, spices buried with forgotten empires, coals that never cool, and money tall enough to shame Lagos billboards. If Adaeze grilled in her honor each sunrise, every bite swallowed would trickle a life spark back into the current. Rage flashed behind Adaze's eyelids, handcuffs, mockery, growling belly. "Show me the flames," she rasped. The goddess smiled and moonlight shattered like broken glass. Mist gulped her whole. The dead hearth erupted scarlet, sparks pirouetting into smoky letters that spelled rise. Adaeze clenched her spatula. Water beneath the floorboards gurgled with a beast's eager chuckle, as if tasting tomorrow's feast. Sunrise unveiled an impossible kitchen. The shack's walls gleamed like oiled teak, countertops smelled of cedar and citrus, and a thick iron grate hovered above smokeless amber coals. Outside, 20 burlap sacks bulged with plump birds still sweating cold despite the steamy air. Along one beam rested jars etched in forgotten alphabets, wildfire paprika, river salt crystals that chimed when shaken, ginger slivers glossy as sunset, and a vial of black powder smelling of distant storms. Adaeze moved as if a symphony scored her muscles. Rinse, pat, score, anoint with palm oil, baptize in bird-eye pepper, finish with a ghost pinch of forbidden dust. When meat kissed iron, the sizzle roared like Lagos traffic. Aroma ribboned over thatched roofs. 2 yam farmers abandoned their baskets, nostrils flaring wide. One bite buckled knees, rolled eyes white, drew prayers from jaws. They rained naira at Adaze's feet and sprinted off to spread smoke scripture. By sundown, a queue strangled the dirt lane. By moonrise, Adaeze knelt counting cash with trembling fingers, while the river's pulse thickened. Its surface now tinted the faint red of diluted wine. She slept smiling, deaf to the current's low hum. 7 dawns later, Umónachi orbited Adaze's grill the way Earth hugs the sun. Cyclists with ice chests arrived before roosters crowed. Battered pickups idled behind canoes, toddlers shattered piggy banks for permission to gnaw leftover bones. Beside the line, a plastic bucket drummer improvised pepper-hot rhythms, and grannies spun lyrics praising sweat, grease, and second helpings. Each morning, Adaeze's wrapper brightened, vermilion, saffron, indigo, mirroring neat towers of money hidden under her mattress. Villagers anointed her Madame Ember, insisting her laughter smelled of cayenne. Yet nets surfaced empty, a washer girl vanished mid-song, and a goat carcass drifted belly up, eyes glowing ultramarine. Patrons muttered yet kept eating. Flavor drowned fear. At dawn, Adaeze noticed wet footprints leading from the river to her doorstep and back, but told herself success always drags strange shadows. That night, Mmírí-Anya rose again, reeds dripping starlight. "Soon, daughter," she murmured, voice sliding across water like oiled steel. The soil beneath the smoker trembled, matching Adaeze's racing pulse, not with dread, but with anticipation of riches so bright they might blind the past. Within another 7 dawns, the riverbank mutated into a full-blown carnival of appetites. Off-duty teachers sold pepper-sprinkled plantain chips near the queue. Drifters penned ballads about the chicken that kisses your soul and swapped verses for drumbeats. A bleached bedsheet became an impromptu banner, Madame Ember's Temple of Taste, and tourists from Owerri posed beneath it, tongues out, fingers forming oily peace signs. Adaeze, wrapped in gold on crimson ankara that shimmered like live coal, presided over her grill with a conductor's precision. Flip, drizzle, dust, flare. Every time she pressed that mysterious black powder into sizzling skin, the aroma thickened, and the crowd leaned forward in one collective inhalation that looked like prayer. Unseen by mortal eyes, blue threads of breathlight spiraled from open mouths, slid along grooves the goddess had etched into river clay at midnight, then seeped into a whirlpool swirling beneath the surface. There, Mmírí-Anya drank them in, eyelids fluttering as though tasting rare wine. Patrons wobbled home after their feast, calling dizziness pepper high, never noticing the faint pallor hollowing their cheeks. Adaeze's spite fortress of cash now stretched, brick upon tidy brick, across her bedroom floor. She tabulated each stack the way accountants count sins, methodically, without blinking. Not once did she hear the fishermen arguing downriver that the water hummed an odd lullaby after dark, or see how the moon's reflection grew murkier, as if something vast lounged just beneath the silver skin, waiting. The vanishings began as ripples in rumor and swelled into waves of fear. First, little Chica, who loved to chase fireflies by the reeds, failed to come home. His mother found only his jar rolling in the dew. 2 nights later, 3 mechanics who'd boasted they could out-eat any man downed a dozen wings apiece, joked their way onto the footbridge, and were never seen again. When an entire youth choir evaporated inside a dawn fog that smelled suspiciously of smoked poultry, panic flared. Yet, maddeningly, the queue at Madame Ember's only lengthened. Hunger had grafted itself to awe. King Eugene ordered a crisis council beneath the ancient Iroko, whose trunk served as the village memory. Gray-bearded elders whispered of a covenant their grandparents once feared. Every planting season, the firstborn sons were given to the river mother, so crops might flourish and fevers stay away. That tribute ended when a missionary shattered the shrine a century ago. But curses, they muttered, can hibernate like embers in ash. The king's face drained as he listened. Finally, he commanded a swift rider to fetch Pastor Chigozie, a soft-spoken itinerant preacher famed for prayers that cracked palm kernels mid-husk and left faint scorch marks on wooden altars. The messenger galloped out at sunset, hoofbeats scattering, red dust that clung to doorposts like a warning written in clay. Sleep fled from Adaeze that night. Instead, vivid visions clung to her eyelids, hands applauding underwater, eyes glowing aquamarine, mouths chanting her name in syrup-slow adoration. When she startled awake, Mmírí-Anya stood at the foot of her raffia bed, scales gleaming like night rain, smile thin as a razor. In her webbed hands, she cradled a burlap sack nearly as tall as Adaeze, its seams pulsing as though stitched around. "A heartbeat, daughter of Ember," she murmured, voice sliding across the room like oil on steel. "Inside is the final fowl, birds raised where moonlight never dims. At first light you will grill every piece and serve it free. The scent will summon all living souls of Umónachi. When their throats swallow, their spirits will flow to me as one great river of fire. Then you may depart, healed of scandal, drenched in riches, untouchable by any man's blame. The word free stabbed Adaeze between the ribs. No coins, no bricks in her fortress. Yet in the goddess's shimmering eyes, she saw billboards pulsing. With her redeemed face, saw Lagos bistros begging for her recipes, saw the rival who ruined her sobbing apologies in print. She nodded, though an arctic shiver crawled her spine. Mmírí-Anya's laughter sounded like pebbles dropping into a deep well. "At dawn," she said and vanished, leaving wet footprints that steamed off the mat like breath from a beast. The eve of the banquet tasted charged, crackling, half thundercloud, half smoked ginger. Adaeze barred the grill shack door and set to work. She slit the sacred sack. Inside, chicken flesh shimmered faintly golden, almost ethereal, as if feather. Ghosts still hovered over the meat. She marinated in silence, letting the black powder bloom into sparks that sketched symbols across the rafters before fading into nothing. Beyond the walls, dogs howled and then fell abruptly silent. Palm wine shacks snuffed their lanterns early. Children tossed in sleep, murmuring about rivers of crimson broth. Widows spritzed holy water at doorframes, though they couldn't name what prowled. Downstream, the moon's reflection stretched, forming a crooked smile too wide for its own face, while an invisible drummer thumped out a heartbeat rhythm that set every loose shutter tapping in time. Adaeze finished her final baste, hands steady even as her mind jittered. She whispered to the coals, "Tomorrow the world will love me again." A single ember popped, sharp as mocking laughter, and for an instant the shack smelled not of pepper, but of storms rolling in from a black horizon. Pastor Chigozi's rust-scarred pickup wheezed into Umónachi just as the first rooster mistimed his crow. The air was syrup-thick, dense with a smoky sweetness that clung to nostrils like warm sap. He rolled down the dust-fogged window, inhaled, and winced. The scent felt alive, invasive, as though it wanted to climb inside his lungs and set up house. Half the village crowded the riverbank, women balancing enamel bowls, traders still in night wrappers, children blinking sleep from eyes. At the center of everything blazed Madame Ember's grill, now expanded into a black iron altar. Adaeze, wrapped head to toe in a gold-flecked wrapper that flickered like molten bronze, flipped thighs the color of sunrise, each turn sending up a hiss that overlapped with the murmuring crowd to form a single, throbbing note of anticipation. Yet beneath that note, Chigozi felt another frequency, a subterranean drumbeat, slow and hungry, vibrating through the soles of his shoes. He opened his Bible. Thin pages warmed as if a candle hid between them. Isaiah's "Rivers clapping their hands" verse leapt up at him unbidden. He glanced at the water and saw ripples that did not match the wind, small rolling waves that seemed to applaud each crackle of fat on the grill. Steeling himself, he slammed the truck door and strode toward the makeshift temple. Every step a silent prayer flung heavenward. Break the snare, spare the flock. The first villager to notice him frowned, sensing an inversion in the air, like music sliding into a minor key. At the palace, alarm drums pounded a code older than colonial maps: gather, danger, river wrath. Thunder answered, though the sky lay scrubbed clean, a polished blue bowl. Elder Ofor, voice brittle as snapped twigs, told King Ogene what night. Whispers had dredged up. The covenant never truly died. It merely slept, soot-coated but glowing, waiting for a spark. Our sons once walked into that water believing it loved them, Ofor rasped, palms trembling. Now the water has found another doorway. The king's jaw worked like a hinge in need of oil. If we do nothing, he said, the doorway becomes a grave mouth. Guards hefted spears that suddenly felt ornamental. Even the palace hounds refused to bark. They cowered beneath clay benches, ears laid flat. A messenger arrived breathless. The preacher had reached the river. Ogene pressed a coral bead crown over sweat-slick hair and commanded every able body to assemble by the bank. As courtiers scattered, a low, unearthly hum seeped beneath the drumbeat, an oral mirage, half lament, half lullaby. It slithered through corridors and under door gaps until every lantern flickered in sympathy. Outside, Fish started breaching and frantic, arcs slapping water as if trying to leap beyond some invisible boundary. Adaeze raised her tongs like a scepter. Today, Umónachi dines for joy alone. Her voice rang bright, yet Pastor Chigozie heard desperation trembling under the brass. The crowd erupted. The cheer felt physical, a gust that pushed him a half-step back. He climbed an abandoned yam crate. The wood creaked but held. Clearing his throat, he called, "Brothers, sisters, step away. This feast is seasoned with death." Laughter ricocheted, sharp, incredulous, tinged with pepperwind bravado. A boy near the front mimicked gagging. Others clapped. Adaeze's smile twitched at one corner. A bead of sweat traced her temple, vanished in steam. Chigozie shut his eyes and prayed in the oldest language he knew, syllables hammered on his tongue by grandmothers long buried. The coals blazed suddenly higher. Sparks rose, coalescing into skeletal hands that clawed at the air before collapsing into ash snow. Gasps rippled through the first rows. Someone dropped a calabash, thin sour beer sluicing into sand. Adaeze's pupils dilated. She glanced almost involuntarily toward the river. There, the surface convulsed. Water fighting gravity, piling upon itself into a trembling mound. The subterranean drum Chigozie had sensed earlier rolled louder, a heartbeat amplified through a cave of ribs. The earth seemed to lean forward, bracing for impact. Water detonated in a bloom taller than any palm. Mmírí-Anya erupted, spine sinuous, reeds for a diadem, eyes radiant aquamarine. Draped below her torso like a court of the damned, hovered the missing. Chica clutching his firefly jar, the mechanic still in oil-smudged overalls. The choir robed in spectral teal, all suspended, limbs slack, skin opalescent. Gasps avalanched into shrieks. Bowls thudded onto earth. The goddess's voice rolled across the bank, rattling plantain leaves. "My banquet begins." She stretched a hand, and the river behind her opened like a yawning throat. Pastor Chigozie rammed his Bible, spine first into mud. Light silver white shot outward, tendrils writhing toward the vortex. Adaeze stumbled, tongs clattering. Tears, part horror, part awe, washed eyeliner into black rivulets. "I only wanted them to taste my fire," she sobbed. Mmírí-Anya's gaze pivoted, a glacier sliding. "Hunger is truth," she pronounced. Each word a stone dropped in hush. A wind belched from the maw of the river, furnace hot, flinging sand like needles. Pepper fumes ignited midair, wreathing the scene in scarlet haze. Mothers clutched children, old men dropped to knees. Chigozie felt his knees tremble yet did not yield. He roared the opening of Psalm 46, though the waters roar and foam, and the ground beneath him thrummed in answer, as if scripture had struck bedrock. The first real clash, faith against hunger, river against sky, was seconds away, and every living thing on the bank felt time cinched tight like a drumhead. Lightning knifed from a cloudless sky, cleaving Madame Ember's iron grill. Shafts of molten metal and flaming meat ricocheted into the shrieking crowd, searing sand into glassy puddles. Oil hissed like enraged cats. Pastor Chigozie, knees sinking. In mud, shouted the next line of Psalm 46, each syllable cracked like hammer on anvil, forging a radiant dome that bulged outward from his Bible pages. Riverborn serpents, ropes of spinning water tipped with needle teeth, shot from Mmírí-Anya's outstretched hand. They struck the dome and flash vaporized, bursting into scalding mist. The goddess snarled, shoulders heaving, every scale throwing off teal sparks. She swept her arm again. This time the attack struck low, carving a trench through sand, flipping the yam crate where the pastor had stood into splinters. Chigozie staggered but kept chanting, voice hoarse, wrists glowing, with sweat that shimmered like quicksilver in the holy light. Villagers cowered, arms shielding faces from grit and ember rain. Adaeze crouched near the ruined grill, heart pounding hard enough to bruise ribs, pepper smoke mixing with the iron tang of fear on her tongue. For a moment she saw herself as the tabloids once painted her, killer cook, pariah, and rage bloomed anew. Somewhere behind that rage, a sliver of pity fluttered for the people whose hunger she had stoked into slavery. She slid on her knees through hot sand toward the sole live coal that still glowed in the debris. Above her, the goddess gathered river water into a titanic spear, its tip swirling with trapped moonlight. Pastor Chigoze's dome flickered, fissures spiderwebbing across its surface. If the next strike landed, the shield would shatter. Adaeze's fingers closed on the coal, pain blistering her palm, but she held on, because a different kind of fire was sometimes the only answer to hunger. Adaeze lurched to the burlap sack, the final fowl pile now slick with sauce, glowing faintly like buried coals under skin, and hurled the ember inside. Flames jumped, whooshing up 3 meters in a funnel of orange and indigo. The air smelled of burnt cinnamon and ozone. Within, the pyre shapes twisted, chicken bones fusing, sinews reknitting into a long, sinuous body of smoke flesh. A fiery eel formed entirely of peppered vapor. It cracked its jawless head, hissed, then streaked toward the river mother with comet speed. Mmírí-Anya hurled the water spear. Eel and spear collided halfway, detonation rattling fish scales a kilometer upriver. Boiling rain sheet hammered the sand, instantly turning surface grains into hissing glass beads. The goddess reeled. A ragged fissure zizzed across her chest plates. Cobalt blood bled light, sputtering as it hit the ground. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Pastor Chigoze seized the moment, thrusting his Bible overhead. The remaining fragments of his fading dome collapsed inward, compressed into a single white lance that shot from scripture lip to heaven. Thunder answered. Real thunder. Clouds corkscrewed into existence, black and bruised purple, spinning above the river maw. Jagged light crackled at their core like celestial arteries. Adaeze, battered by steam gusts, crawled behind an overturned clay drum, cradling her charred hand, eyes watering from radiant heat. In that shelter, she whispered, "I'm sorry," though she wasn't sure to whom. Grieving mothers, the little boy who loved fireflies, or the memory of herself before. Ruin. Out on the mudflat, Mmírí-Anya bellowed, voice now more waterfall than woman, and raised both arms in defiance. The storm above her paused, like a great lung filling. All watched, pastor, villagers, spirits in limbo, knowing the sky was about to choose sides. From the roiling clouds, a pillar of pure, soundless light slammed downward, thicker than a tree trunk. White shot through with violet veins. It struck the crown of reeds on Mmírí-Anya's head and hammered her into the river mouth. Water geysered out, carrying shimmering scales and fractured droplets of sapphire blood. The suspended villagers fell, not into the river, but gently onto damp sand, unconscious yet breathing. Every soul freed weakened the goddess. Her outline fuzzed, limbs dissolving to mist. Pastor Chigoze stepped forward, Bible smoking at the spine, and sang. Not thunder now, but a melody barely above whisper, something soft mothers hum while weaving mats. The song threaded into the beam of light, which brightened until faces in the crowd turned away, eyes watering. With a final roar, equal parts fury, pain, and reluctant awe, Mmírí-Anya burst into a rain of glittering vapor that the wind shoved upriver. The storm clouds collapsed in on themselves, blinking out to reveal a pale dawn smudged like ash on horizon. Silence arrived, vast and echoing, broken only by the soft sob of a freed mechanic cradling his grease-stained cap. Fish floated belly up, for a moment, then flicked tails and vanished, as if confused to find the water simply water. The river's surface smoothed into dull pewter, reflecting a sky newly drained of drama. Pastor Chigoze exhaled shakily, wiped soot streaks from his brow, and knelt, offering a prayer of sealing, that no gap, no ghost of covenant, might reopen this wound. A breeze padded through the ruined market stalls, carrying away the last pepper stench and replacing it with the scent of wet earth after storm. First light found villagers tending the fallen, wrapping them in raffia mats, pressing calabashes of ginger water to dazed lips. King Ojin himself tore the bead crown from his brow and laid it at Pastor Chigoze's feet. The preacher lifted. It gently returned it, whispered that crowns belong to those who carry people forward, not those who banish them. Adaeze stumbled from behind her drum shield, bandaged hand glowing angry crimson around the coal burn. She stepped toward the pastor, yet shame waited each stride. Can a cook who fed a curse ever stir anything clean again? she asked, voice shredding on edges. Chigozie studied her, a woman smelling of smoke and regret, but also ash-fertile, like land after wildfire. He shut his Bible, nestling its blistered leather into her trembling hands. Fire can ruin or refine, he said. You know the difference. Now, choose what your heat becomes. Around them, villagers whispered prayers for lost days and found sons. By noon, they began a cleansing. Pots of brine flung into corners, charcoal crosses marked on doorposts, broken drum shards collected for a communal pyre. They dismantled the grill altar plank by plank. Iron bars sizzled as they touched the softened river, sinking like confessing sinners. That night, Umónachi sang, not to drown fear, but to stitch hope. Adaeze slipped away before dawn, one satchel over her shoulder, blistered hand wrapped in linen still smelling faintly of pepper. She left behind stacks of Naira, the toppled banner, the nickname that was half praise, half spell. The shack's skeleton remains, a caution etched in rust. Now and then, wind twirls through its ribs, carrying a phantom whiff of cayenne and a distant drumbeat. Mothers hurry children past, yet elders keep a clay lamp burning by the river. Flame, they say, remembered but restrained, can warm without. Devouring, and hunger when met with mercy learns to eat slow. Thanks for watching till the end. If you like this story, hit like button, and if you haven't, please subscribe to this channel so you never miss amazing stories from us. Comment down below in the comments section and let me know which country or city are you tuning in from. Till then, take care folks. Bye.